Hi, and welcome back to Mom in Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and this is another episode of Behind the Sessions. More specifically, this is the second part of a series that I am offering to help those of you who are struggling in the middle of the night during pregnancy or with a newborn. This period of time can be really hard. You can feel lonely, you can feel isolated, you can feel worried, you can feel anxious. And if you haven't yet listened to the first part of this series, it is available to you. You can go back and listen to that, where I talked about the feelings of heaviness and loneliness that is oh so real, and something that I experienced very deeply when I was in my postpartum. And I know a lot of other moms and parents experience that as well. And especially with the loss of sleep, the shifting of hormones, the increased stress from just learning a new job, trying to figure out what your baby needs, and sometimes doing that on your own. If you don't have a lot of support, even if you do have support, you can still feel these things. Sometimes it really impacts your sense of worry, your sense of anxiety. And it can feel very hard, especially in the middle of the night, to feel like you have a calm mind. And, the middle of the night can be ripe for anxiety and intrusive thoughts because of that loss of sleep, because of the stress, because everything is new. And what's really hard is people will experience this like tired but wired kind of a feeling, like your body could be exhausted. You could be like just barely able to function with the amount of energy that you have, but your mind might be like, worried about a lot of things, or moving quickly, or you feel sort of restless in your body, even if you're tired. You could be worried about your baby, worried about how they're feeding, how they're sleeping, how they're doing, how they're developing. Are you doing this right? Are they okay? What should you be doing? And oh my gosh, if you knew the kinds of things that moms or primary caregivers or whoever's up in the middle of the night, the types of things that people are searching on the internet is all like answers to questions. Am I doing this right? Am I feeding my baby? How should I sleep train? When should I sleep train? Is this symptom normal? Is this thing that I notice that they're doing, is that okay? I'm scared something will happen to my baby. I can't sleep even when the baby is sleeping. Some people might be searching postpartum anxiety signs, postpartum depression signs. Why don't I feel connected to my baby? Why can't I stop crying? I don't love this part of motherhood. Does that make me a bad mom? Why don't I feel happy? I feel weird. I don't feel like myself. What does that mean? And sometimes those thoughts can feel like they're just on a loop, or hard to manage, or, hard to stop. Like they just kind of keep coming. And that could be a sign of anxiety. It can also be a sign that you really need sleep. But what it's not a sign of is you being a bad mom or a bad person or a bad parent. I think it's really, really important to remember this, especially in the middle of the night. If you are somebody right now who is awake in the middle of the night and wondering these same things, having all of these worries, it doesn't mean anything about you. It really doesn't. The context of your life is that you are exhausted, you're trying to figure this out, you're doing your very best in a difficult situation when you're, exhausted. And sometimes these thoughts can turn into intrusive thoughts, or they are intrusive thoughts. And these are thoughts that kind of come in quickly, are negative, unwanted thoughts that could be scary for you. They could be concerning. You don't know why you're having them. You don't want to be having them. And there's quite a range of different types of intrusive thoughts, but oftentimes they can be related to worry about something happening to baby. what I really want to emphasize is that if you're experiencing intrusive thoughts, also know that you're not alone there. A lot of people experience intrusive thoughts, and the majority of new moms do. It could be like a standalone thing that's related to sleep loss. It could be connected to anxiety, like a diagnosable anxiety. But again, it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. Intrusive thoughts are a sign of hypervigilance, that your brain is on high alert, but it's not that you're broken. It is not a sign that you're failing. And what I find to be pretty common is that, during the day, you might have the experience of there's a lot of other stuff going on that distracts you or keeps your mind occupied. And there's other things to do, other people to talk to, but nighttime is quiet. And for a lot of people who might even start to dread or not like the nighttime, it could be in part because, well, now that there's time and space and not a lot else going on, your brain has all of this space to now worry. It's not distracted, so the thoughts are louder. You're tired, so it's harder to manage your worry and regulate that in a way that you might have been able to do during the day. And without distraction and with more time on your hands to, let your thought process sort of go down the rabbit hole, the worries can feel more intense. But it's not that your worries are suddenly more real all of the sudden at night. It's just that your brain has less resources to handle it at 2 a.m. You're tired. You are probably just trying to figure out how to feed a baby or how to diaper or, what's going on? How come they're so gassy? Why do they keep burping up? What am I going to, there could be lots of things that you're thinking about. But as I say to people, 2, 3, 4 a.m., this is not your best decision-making time. This is not the best time for planning. This is not the best time to have your most sharp thinking skills on board. So all of these things can contribute to your thoughts and feelings seeming larger, bigger, harder to manage, harder to regulate. Your thought process might be naturally a little bit more negative, a little bit more self-judgmental, because that's what happens with anxiety, and that's what happens with sleep loss, and that's what happens when we have a new job and we don't have any training to do that job. There's impostery syndrome type stuff that comes in. We start questioning everything, and it's hard to be on a growth edge. It's hard to be learning something new in the middle of the night. That's not typically when we're having a new job. That's not typically when we are learning all of these new skills. But here you are, up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., multiple times a night, trying to figure it out. And it's hard. So I really want to normalize that this is an experience that a lot of people have. And as I mentioned in the previous episode in this series, there are a lot of other people also up in the middle of the night, potentially having very similar worries to you. While you might be alone in your own home, you're not alone in the experience. There are other people who know what this feels like and who've also been through it and gotten to the other side of it. So there is hope that you won't always feel this way. So if this sounds like your experience, if you feel exhausted, but your mind feels wide awake, if your thoughts are racing, or you started thinking about all the things you should be doing, or all of a sudden the list of stuff that you were quote unquote supposed to do yesterday or for the past 5 weeks is now in your head, and you feel the pressure that you should have done those things by now. If you're having intrusive thoughts at any time of day, but in the middle of the night, as we're talking about here, if you experience that feeling of like not wanting nighttime to come or increased anxiety as nighttime is coming, you feel a little bit of dread about being alone and having to deal with all of this by yourself, meaning there's not a lot of distraction, or your partner works nights or is not awake, or sleeps like a log and barely wakes up even when you're like elbowing them in the ribs. If you feel like your worries at nighttime are suddenly more real or more intense, then you might be experiencing anxiety. It's hard to know sitting here, but certainly if these things continue to happen, if it feels overwhelming, if it feels hard to manage, if it feels intense and it's lasting for 2 weeks or more, then it is wise to seek out support. And it is a sign of strength to seek out support. You just don't have to go through this alone. So I definitely encourage people to reach out, look for support. If it's not therapy specifically, it can be a trusted friend. But if it feels like it might be an intensity and a duration of symptoms that's lasting a long time, even outside of the wee hours of the night, then man, get the support you need to feel better. What I want to do for now is offer you some tools and skills that can be useful. As I've mentioned, in previous episodes, not every skill and not every tool is for everybody. That's normal. So I'm offering kind of a wide range of things to try out. You can use them, test them out with yourself, see how they feel, see how they fit. And if one or two resonate for you, then that's awesome. If some of them don't, then that's fine too. It absolutely doesn't mean that you need to force yourself to use a coping skill or tool that doesn't resonate for you or doesn't work for you. It's just a matter of trying out a bunch of different ones until you find one that does work. So one of the things that I like to use is called worry time. And that is if you are up in the middle of the night with all these anxious thoughts, as I mentioned before, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning is not your best problem solving hour, but your worries are there. So what to do? Well, you can have a notepad next to your bed or next to, where you feed baby, and jot down your thoughts, the things that are running through your mind, and have that list for reference, because sometimes people, when they're anxious, feel like they're not going to remember some of the things that they're worried about. So it's fine to make a list, but also set a time, a date with yourself to get back to that list in the waking hours, if and when you have the time. So that could be like, let's say help is coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then there's a list of things that you really need to attend to at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Then you're not ignoring your worry. You're not telling yourself you shouldn't worry. You're just saying like, hey, I'm going to look at this in the light of day when I have a little bit more space and time and bandwidth to really look at this and see like, okay, are these things that I need and want to attend to? Or was this just kind of part of that soup of nighttime fatigue, anxiety, worry? Another tool that's very powerful, although it seems simple, is just to label your thoughts and label your feelings as they come up, as you notice them. Specifically with anxious thoughts and depressed thoughts, they're sort of slippery dudes. They can just like get in there and hang out, and they could be hard to kind of catch and to get out of your mind, and they can definitely grow and become more intense. So as soon as you notice that there's a thought or a feeling in your body, in your mind, that is related to anxiety, or you can label it that is an anxious thought. And what that does is gives you a little bit of distance from the thought to be able to label it. Notice that it is a product of the nighttime, the fatigue, the exhaustion, objectivity, and that it's a thought. It's not necessarily something that's going to come true. Another thing you can say to yourself is, my thoughts are not facts. You have this like immediate need to worry about related to a feeling. It's that it's a thought, and that's okay. Thoughts and feelings are there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is an actual fact. It is something that is happening right now. And by labeling it, you are, especially with worry, worry tends to take you out into the future, or it could sort of put a magnifying glass on a situation that's happening in the moment. The ability to be a little bit more when we feel anxious and worried, especially then when our thoughts tend to get away from us a little bit, are intense. So being able to say to yourself, my thoughts, it's hard to be objective. So being able to label something as good ways to have thought be a little bit more objective with that. And especially if your worries are sort of taking you, into the future, or in the moment you're feeling like things are very intense, you can try and use the present moment as an anchor by saying something like, right now, in this moment, I am safe. Right now, in this moment, my baby is safe. Right now, in this moment, I do not have to figure this out. And bringing yourself into the present moment and like taking away that magnifying glass that anxiety gives us, and bringing yourself back to this moment as opposed to being far out into the future, also helps you to feel like a little bit less anxious, feels a little bit more like you can manage this moment. And sometimes people say things like, I'm taking things day by day. But sometimes you need to take things moment by moment. When we can stay as present as possible in this moment as possible, by acknowledging and seeing that you have safety and your baby has safety in this moment, it can bring a sense of relief and ideally a little moment of calm. So what I want to offer is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, the grounding exercise, where you're using your senses to help you be more in the present moment and redirect your brain, redirect your anxious thoughts to something else that doesn't necessarily need to be productive, but it is a useful, if I can say, way to like turn your attention to something else. So by using all of our senses, we can help bring our whole mind and body more into the present moment. So with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, first, you want to notice 5 things you can see in the room. It could be a lamp, the bed, the dog, the door handle, a water bottle. It can be anything, things that are relatively benign. You don't have to work too hard to label things. It can just be whatever your eyes land on, and that's fine. But you want to name them. If you can't name them out loud, you can name them in your mind. Next, you move on to your sense of touch, finding 4 things that you can touch. And if you're sort of underneath a baby who's feeding, then it can be anything that's in your vicinity. You don't have to go looking for stuff. It can be the bedspread. It could be your water bottle. It could be your phone if you're holding that. It could be a pillow. It could be the chair. But you want to touch those things with your hands and bring your felt sense of presence into the experience. Next, you can notice 3 things that you can hear. And this could be anything. It could be in the room, outside of the room. It could be your partner snoring. I hope it's not that, but it definitely could be that. It could be the sound of a white noise machine if you use one of those. It could be the sound of the air conditioner or heater turning on. It could be your dog breathing or anything else that you notice with your sense of hearing. And then next you can move on to 2 things that you can smell. And again, if you're feeding a baby, there's probably some things around you that you could smell. Like it could just be the smell of your baby's head. It could be some lotion that you have near the bed. It could be whatever snack you're eating at the moment. Just taking in and breathing in those things that you can smell, ideally that you have a positive association with. And then, if possible, moving on to one thing you can taste. And that can be as simple as water or any kind of beverage that you have nearby, or cough drop, or whatever's around that can help you bring into that sense of taste. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And lastly, for today, we can close with a relaxation technique. Nothing that's too complicated, but this is a version of a full body scan, but you just can do a brief body scan from head to toe, gently with your mind going through each part of your body from your head all the way down to your toes, and pausing anywhere you notice tension. Could be in your jaw, it could be in your forehead, could be in your shoulders. There's a lot of tension in the shoulders and back from feeding, however you're feeding, or from laying awkward in a bed and having to shimmy around whatever, maybe a sleeping baby or things like that. But you want to notice and pause wherever you experience tension, and just notice that, yep, there's tension there. And if you'd like to, add a deep breath in, and then try and, on the out breath, release that tension in that area of your body. And continue doing that throughout your system, throughout your body, until you've gone from your head to your toes and noticed any tension that's there, and taken a mindful breath in and taken a breath out with which you also release some of that tightness. And in closing for this episode, I just want to remind you that, that the nighttime is harder. It really is. And although you might feel heaviness and you might feel loneliness, there are other people who know what this feels like. And while you might feel alone or isolated in your room or in your house in this moment, there are other people experiencing this same things or similar things in this very moment. And we are all connected in that way. There's nothing you should be doing right now. There's nothing you have to solve tonight in this moment. Anything that is going on right now in your thought process or what you're worried about that you should be doing is something that can probably be managed tomorrow. Certainly, if there are things you need to attend to now, of course, you're going to do that. But a lot of the things that keep us up at night are problems for the daytime to solve. And sometimes they're not even problems to solve. It's just a product of the context of sleep deprivation, hormone changes, a new job with no training, and, trying to figure out this transition and phase of life. So I hope this was helpful for you. Definitely go back to the first in this series if you haven't yet listened to that one. And there will be 2 more in this series to help you in the middle of the night. And hopefully there's, even just if one thing is supportive to you, then that would be great. You can come back to any one of these episodes at any time for a reminder, for it's just helpful to hear what the coping skills and techniques are, so I can help you walk through them. You don't have to memorize them. This is a resource for you whenever you need it. And if you do know somebody else who has this feeling in the middle of the night, let them know that this resource exists, and hopefully it can help them too. So I'm thinking of you there in the middle of the night, going through what you're going through. And I hold hope for you. And I know that you can get through this. I've seen it. I've been there. And I know you can get through it too. So thank you for taking the time to take care of yourself and for joining me here. And I look forward to the next one.